Namaskar and welcome to In Conversation. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. 23rd August 2023, India created history by successfully landing Chandrayaan-3 on the lunar surface. To commemorate the feat, August 23rd has been declared as National Space Day. To understand the importance of the day and the advances, the achievements of India's space sector, I have with me a very special guest, Dr. S. Somanath, Chairman, ISRO. Warm welcome to this exclusive conversation on DD India, sir.
Thank you. Happy to have me here.
Thank you, sir. First, congratulations to you on the recent successful completion of the SSLV development project, one of the many feathers in ISRO's hat. If you could briefly tell us about the significance of this recent project.
The launch of SSLV in its third development flight placed a microsatellite called EOS-08 in the orbit, 475 kilometers circle orbit. It is significant from 2 points. One, it is the third and the final development flight of SSLV, which we started 4 years back. It has gone through 3 flights. The first one was a failure, the second one a success, the third one now was a successful flight. And after that, we are declaring this rocket is ready for production and technology transfer to industry. So that is the first significance, that whole process of technology transfer we started even much before this launch.
Yes.
Okay, the whole process is now getting into the RFP stage and identification of the industries to take on the technology transfer. And this rocket is very special because it is a low cost rocket and it is made with accessible technologies and conducive for industry production and also very short cycle time of integration, testing and launching.
Right. As India celebrates the first National Space Day, what are the thoughts in your mind, especially about the milestones achieved and the direction in which ISRO and the space sector of the country is headed?
The landing of the Chandrayaan-3, the Vikram on the southern side of the moon was historic. I think all of you know that India is the first nation to do so in its attempt to land on the southern side. This really increased or raised our spirits of exploration and also the space activity across the nation. I can tell you, it's not only across this country, but all across the world. It brought to light the way in which that we engineer complex systems, the frugal nature of our engineering, the cost effective nature of our missions and the scientific content in each of them, and that too done within India using our own talents.
So if you talk about the theme of National Space Day, touching lives while touching the moon, it seems to talk about our flagship achievements, but also the difference it is making in the everyday life of people. If you could tell us a little more about it.
Yeah, it's very interesting, that theme. See, we have all the time telling that we are touching the lives of the people. And when we do so, the reason for going to moon has always been questioned. And the connection between these two are very, very evident today, because it is inspiring people, it is inspiring youngsters, it is also bringing in new talents and technology into the domain of the space. So, traditionally we have been working with people serving the humanity, like in disaster management, natural resources mapping, communication. Now, today we are into the space, looking at moon and Mars and beyond the universe. Yes.
So you're talking about the impact that space sciences has on the lives of people. We know that the adverse impact of climate change is becoming more and more evident by each passing day. What role is space technology, space development playing in mitigating this challenge that the humanity faces today?
So, first and foremost is to understand the space, from the space that we are able to understand the changes that are happening. See, the rate of change of weather and climate, that is something very phenomenal because of human intervention. And many people are not able to follow it, understand it, the effect of it, unless you collect data over long periods of time. The space gives you the synoptic view of the earth and provides you the data, which gives you the picture of how things are happening. For example, the weather elements which causes the temperature rise, the desertification, the sea level rise, the pollution that are happening, the salinity of the water that is increasing, and many of these are not measurable to the common eye. It is more measurable when you do it with the remote sensing observations and space-based technology.
Right. If we move on to the forthcoming missions of ISRO, there is a lot of excitement, we understand, around the Gyaan mission. If you could share with us briefly the progress made on that mission and what is the broad timeline that we are looking at?
The last about 4 or 5 years we have been working on this program for building a rocket which will be human rated. building the craft that is called the Gaganyaan craft, the crew module, and the associated complex systems, a crew escape system and the intelligence in the rocket which are required to carry out this mission. I can tell you that we have reached the threshold of completing the rocket ready. The rocket is already completed the human rating and is at Satish Dhawan Space Center for ready for launch. The crew module and the rest of the elements are new developments. Of course, this has gone through certain development process. We did some missions in the recent times showcasing how the crew escape can really happen. The flight item is now finally undergoing the integration, and still there are some milestones to cross, like the development of crew. For example, environmental control support system is under development and many such smaller elements. So, the first mission we are undertaking without crew inside, but with a robot which will be replicating the human flight scenarios and do the measurements. Vyomitra, of course.
Humanoid, yes.
So, the crew module, the crew escape system and other elements will come to launch complex by next 2 months or so, and we will be ready for the first mission, the unmanned mission, uncrewed mission to space by December this year.
Right, and we'd like to learn a little more about the crew. We met, of course, the 4 astronauts for this mission. If you could also give us an insight into what kind of rigorous routine preparation are the crew members undertaking as we speak?
They are already well prepared, because before even joining this crew contingent or the astronaut pool, we call them, the 4 of them were very accomplished pilots, not only just fighter pilots, but also trainers of pilots. And so, they have the ability to understand the complex nature, and subsequently coming over to our domain, they have undergone training at various places, including Russia and other European places on many skills. Then they back here in India, we have established our own training facilities, teaching them more of engineering rather than flying, because we need to understand the complex connection between the aerospace and the flying, which are 2 different domains. And they are the people who are helping us to design and develop the Gaganyaan module. They are not just the people who are going to fly, because we do not have a Gaganyaan vehicle yet. It is under evolution. So, they are the people helping us to design and develop, and some of them are going to US in the International Space Station as well to fly, and that will bring also additional knowledge and skill from them.
And we understand that human space flight comes with its own share of risks. For those of us following the story of the NASA scientist Sunita Williams, she's stuck in the space for many days now. So, are there also these contingency plans that we're looking at in advance?
Of course, these are part of the design process, the contingencies, because the mission can have anomaly at any point in time, even before it take off. So, we design something called crew escape system.
Right.
In case there is something going to happen to the rocket, even before liftoff, we have pad about scenarios, and even at every instant of the flight, there are possibilities that a problem can crop up, and we need to escape the crew even before it actually manifests in the form of catastrophe. So, this is one part of it. So, it requires capability like engineering and understanding how the vehicle is going to develop any anomaly, and develop a very fast acting system to save the crew. But more than that, even in orbit, there can be contingencies like what you see in the Sunita Williams case. Even after having reached the orbit, even after having successfully docked, there were problems of return. But for us also, such contingencies are being discussed, designed as part of the technical design, and also processes which will enable us, even under some contingency conditions, we should be able to bring them back.
Right, Dr. Somanath, if we now talk about the expanding space ecosystem in the country, startups in the country have a very exciting role to play. I understand there are over 200 space startups in the country as of now. How do you see the manner in which they are expanding the potential and scope of space sciences in the country?
The startup has an important role to play. First and foremost, it comes from students, young people who are aspiring to work in space sector, and they are coming with new ideas. See, there are established players who knows how to build rockets, how to build satellites, how to build deploy applications, but the change is in the innovative ideas that the young people bring in. And once you package those innovation into the products of space, then it becomes cost effective, and it will have a far reaching impact on bringing in new technologies into the domain. So, we look at startups from that point of view, not into the about scaling or economy, but into the domain of potential future growth prospect. There is another set of people who are working on traditional space players who have been supporting us in building rockets and satellites and launch vehicles. They are big players, big industries. We are also encouraging them to take up tasks like building the future rockets, operating the satellite constellations, making use of the data to create value for it. So, both are startups are supported, established industries are supported to create a space economy.
And I mentioned startups also because many of the prominent ones that I've spoken with, they speak about the kind of nurturing and mentoring role that ISRO has played, from making made in India rockets to 3D design engines. How do you also see this organic relationship that young entrepreneurs, space entrepreneurs, have with a body like ISRO?
See, this is a new, interesting domain where young people are interested to work in space, become entrepreneurs, create investments opportunity, and try to innovate. But they were lacking certain access to the knowledge and skill of ISRO and facilities, because it is a cost intensive facility. So, there was hue and cry in the past. They were not given access to this. Their ISRO is becoming a bottleneck, and that is why the government came out with an idea of opening of the space sector. The publicly funded capability that we have created, the knowledge, the technology, the facilities must become accessible to people who want to create new areas within India. So, Indian companies who have an interest to do that. So, this is what happened with the space sector opening, and I have been personally working with many of them, mentoring, helping to find out their new path, giving them courage to work on new domains like what you mentioned about additive manufactured engines and testing, giving whatever support we can give from ISRO facilities. Even our own staff work for them. You can understand the type of inspiration. So, we work for them to create whatever gaps they have, to overcome that gap in terms of building a launch pad, supporting them in launches, creating a test facility for them. We work to create the idea for them to help them to grow.
Right, and as a head of ISRO, the remarkable achievements of India's space sector, what is your assessment of, are we able to now attract the best talent in the country in the space sector? Are there enough skill development opportunities for specialized space professionals?
There are many elements to it. First, whether there are talents. Yes, there is enough of talent. There is no shortage of talent in India. You will find them in nook and corner of the country. So, that is the first part of it. Second is, are they getting opportunity to come into the space sector and find a way to reach? This is something which we are addressing. Whether all of them get pan India, they get an opportunity to come. Second part is that whether there is enough of educational opportunity to understand space sector. This part we are taking up with many institutions across the country to create curricula for them, and that InSpace is doing this work to create the curricula, so that people get an opportunity to understand complex technology applications and create niche for themselves. Lastly, skilling. Skilling is something which we are doing. Students who have an interest to work in space, mentorship, internships, project opportunity in ISRO also we are trying to give, so that skilling also happens along with their learning.
Dr. Somanath, there is also a commercial aspect to space sector. The global space economy is estimated to be at multi-billion dollars, whereas India occupies only 2% of it. What are we planning to do to expand this footprint?
See, if you look at the commercial size of the space economy, it is valued something like $400 billion and beyond, global space economy. In the 2% is Indian. Okay. Now, if that has to scale up to something like say 9–10% in the future, another 10 years or so, then we have to work in various areas. The bigger part of that economy lies in the secondary effects, the applications, the infrastructure building, the equipments, manufacturing and supply. Global markets for them has to be created. First and foremost, India should become a manufacturing hub of space products and services, like the satellite building, the ground receiving stations, the communication equipments, the handheld equipments, all of this should be built here. Second, we should be able to launch rockets at a lower cost than others, so as to attract the satellites to be launched.
Aren't we already doing that? We are a reliable,
we are doing it. We have done almost 400 plus satellites launched for other nations. But then we need to attract more. We need to have dedicated launches of commercial satellites more, and that can happen only when we have the launch cost to be reduced substantially than the present.
Right. I'd now like to talk about the manner in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi engages with the space sector in the country. He's a keen interest, the confidence that he has on ISRO and the sector, from the challenge of Chandrayaan-2 to the success and celebration of Chandrayaan-3. How do you see the force that he represents in taking the space sector?
No, he is very clear in his vision, long-term vision. I think all of you would have heard him speaking about the Amrit Kal, the 2047, when India celebrates its 100th anniversary of its nationhood. We must be a strong, powerful nation and power defined by the knowledge and skill in technology. And technology is going to be the one deciding factor for a nation to be a powerful and economic powerhouse. See, he looks at space as one of the harbinger of this capability. See, we have been behind many years, others in comparison to others. We were able to bridge the gap through focused work and consistent work over so many years. Today, we can boast about some of the accomplishment, and it didn't come by surprise. It came by the concentrated effort and hard work to reach to some level. Now, beyond this, how to take it forward, he has a vision. We have created a vision for 2047 for space as well, in looking at an inspirational story, focus on applications and utility, and looking at demand aggregation, looking at economic scale of activity scaling. All these are factors in around it. So, Honorable Prime Minister is very clear in his vision, and he has given us direction and guideline on how to proceed.
Right, and how has the new space policy also expanded the potential and scope of India's space sector, the opportunities, the manner in which they've also grown with that reform?
Reform happened in 2020 by the announcement of opening up of the space sector.
Yes.
The policy came in 2023 in clearly delineating the responsibility of Department of Space, ISRO, in SIL and in space, and also encouraging private companies to work in every area of space. They are not prevented from anything, but then it requires enabling mechanism to help them. So, there is a promotion, enabling, hand holding, regulation, all these are come through the InSpace, and ISRO is mandated to do more research to support this sector to grow. We have the public sector unit NSIL mandated to take all the operational work of it, so that ISRO focus on research. So, there are many things are part of the space sector reform and the space policy. Now, it is fully in action. I think you are able to see the result somewhat visible, but yes. I believe in next few years we will see the scaling up of it in the scale of economic activity.
Dr. Somanath, one of the best examples of women-led development can be seen in India's space sector. Prime Minister also mentions it in his Independence Day speech. From Mangalyaan to other flagship projects, as head of ISRO, what can you tell us about this unique culture of the organization?
Many things are very, very important in ISRO. The culture of the organization is substantially different than what you see in a public sector undertaking. There is a participatory management, and there is the non-hierarchical structure, presence of women at decision-making processes, and their voices are having heard. The representation is very high in terms of the activities that you see. They are typically 20-25% in key areas, sometimes in some domains up to 30%. So, these are indicators of a progressive organization, and this is important for scientific work, that we should not control anyone based on any such differentiation, but based on pure merit, and that made these things possible.
Right. India has emerged as a key development partner of nations of the global south. In the context of space diplomacy, how is India leveraging its expertise in order to help nations in need, especially in the space sector?
So, we have been helped by many people in the past. When we started the space program in the 60s, the help from the US, the USSR, the France, and many others came through. And slowly we developed capability, and we are thankful to all of them. But at this moment, when we look at, there are many space aspiring nations who wanted to do things like deploying their space systems, bringing it benefit to their nation, and India is ready to support all of them. So, we engage in multilateral, bilateral cooperation through bodies, the UN bodies and other multilateral bodies. We also have one-to-one interaction with all the space agencies. We work with the nations. We also work with industries across nations. So, there are many layers of interaction, some of them in the policy level, some of the business level, some of the technology level. Okay. So, we are part of many of those movements, ideas. For example, we participate in BRICS through space consortia. We are part of the UN Coopers, where we contribute in terms of policies and sustainability and working with all the agencies in creating a value. We are also part of the Artemis Accord, where that we want to with the US led people on working on future exploration in a peaceful use of manner. So, many such things are happening, and we are also part of national global bodies like International Astronautical Federation, where we work on space, International Institute of Astronautics, and many such bodies we represent, participate, and contribute.
And I want to just return to the National Space Day, the first National Space Day that India is going to be celebrating. How is ISRO approaching the big day? What are your plans for National Space Day?
This is going to be an annual celebration. So, every year we are going to have this. This being the first National Space Day, have as prominence so that it has to get embedded into the minds of the people that we are going to this. So, that is why it is important, and once you do that over some periods of time, people will definitely be gathering every year to celebrate it. So, that way this year it is important, and we are going to, we have already having programs all across the country with the participation of industries, academic institutions, laboratories, scientific institutions, all came forward with the government's directive to celebrate by organizing useful workshops, programs, competitions, student engagement, etc. And finally culminating on 23rd August at Delhi, New Delhi, with a program of participatory program across ministries, departments, educational institutions, industries.
India aspires to be a developed nation by 2047, as we talked about it. What is the target that ISRO has set for itself? If you can tell us more about it. What is the future of space exploration in India?
See, we have been very modest in working with a very low budget in the past, creating certain capability for the nation. So, today we have certain strengths to have an indigenous capability of launchers, satellites and applications. By 2047, we must enhance it substantially, primarily looking at what is the need of the nation. Because by the time the nation, I believe it will be an economic powerhouse by 2047. I do not put them in number 1, 2 or anything position, but we will definitely be an economically stronger nation, and it needs space as a infrastructure, which is a critical infrastructure. So, I see space as a critical infrastructure, without which, like roads, waterways and air transport, space is becoming so critical for our security, for national asset mapping and for comfort of life of human being. And all these areas we must serve. The exploration becomes important because it has a long term vision. It is just not for 25 years, it is for next few hundreds of years. And when humanity is going to step out of earth and go fast, India cannot be left behind. When we must become a leader to take it the place to go to moon, Mars and habitat of creation of human beings outside, who else will do? I believe India will be the leader in doing it, but today we may not be in terms of the scale of activity. I believe once you become an economic power, and if you are able to sustain it, definitely this will get the thrust needed beyond 2047.
And so finally, the youngsters who are watching this program, many of whom have seen the Chandrayaan-3 landing and the success, aspire to be astronauts or space scientists. Any message for them, for youngsters across the country?
No, I would like to tell the youngsters that you believe that you can first. So, the confidence is important, and of course, knowledge is important, and there is no lack of knowledge in this nation. And the culture that we have today is to worship knowledge and work on the knowledge. Definitely we can do wonders. And we have other characteristics. One, we have a Guru Shishya Parampara in which knowledge transfer takes place through our established system. We also have a culture of supporting innovation and youngsters. We also create the concept of Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. It is not just for us for private use, but for the entire good of the humanity that we want to work. All these are important. But I would like to you young people, what is more important is to understand the impact of each of your work matters to the nation. And for a nation to become very strong, technology is very important, and unless we find good talents within the country and bringing it up to handle technology, core high technology, we will never be powerful, and there is huge opportunity for you. Please explore and find out for yourself.
On that note, Dr. S. Somanath, thank you very much for joining us in this conversation.
Thank you so much.
That was Chairman ISRO talking about National Space Day and the advancements and achievements of India's space sector. With that, we conclude this edition of In Conversation. Namaskar.